Here's the marketing performance process that we espouse. As I said, others could do equally well. And we think of it in these 7 steps. First is to understand your customers, who they are, what are their needs, what are their problems, what are the products, and how do they fit against the needs and problems. Who are our competitors and what alternatives are there. Understanding is obviously very central to it, but we all have to make sure we do that as a first step. The second step is to diagnose any problems that you see. And these first 3 things of understand, diagnose and articulate tend to happen together all the time. So we diagnose the problems, we start working on those. We articulate the story, and if we see one in our consulting practice, if we see one big problem, it is that very often what you have and what you do and who your customers are is not well articulated. So being able to get that tight and very clear and simple is huge, very important. And then we go on through decide, which is saying we need a plan, and without a plan things won't happen. People will pretend to agree, but they won't really, they won't commit. If you write it down, it doesn't have to be fancy, if you write it down you can make it happen. So that moves on through communicate, which of course is very familiar to us. That's what people think of as marketing. Delivery, and then measuring results and actually improving the plan. The feedback step that takes it all around. Now, we've given all of you a tube with a copy of our vivid pink poster here, which is our marketing performance process, something that you can put on the wall so that it jumps into your eyes every morning and reminds you to use the process. Customer experience was the third thing. And here's just a reminder to say, when we're talking about customer experience, don't talk about products and services. Don't talk about positioning. That's our talk, that's shop talk. Talk about problems, needs and wants. What are they up against? Talk about their view of the product and service, not how we're positioning it. So when we talk customer experience, that's what we mean. We're talking about looking and thinking from the customer's point of view. And innovative customer experience is based on the idea that that reliable, sustainable growth that constitutes what great marketing is requires innovation in customer experience. What we're saying, all of our work has said to us that you can't just do marketing and the company grows, that you've got to be innovating. But you may not be innovating in your product or your service all the time. Very often you'll be innovating in how you market it, or how you interact with the customer, or how you support them. As long as you are innovating in their experience, you'll move forward. So just to repeat that in case you didn't get it, growth is always driven by innovation. Different is better, unique is best. And don't forget marketing innovation. Now, when we talk about innovation, there are 2 complementary aspects. One is evolutionary incremental development, which is what we see when we're marketing copiers and we keep making them better, and that's great, that's important, it's predictable, but it's low risk and low return. The other way is revolutionary development, which is talking about big changes, getting out into the blue ocean, for those of you who've read the Blue Ocean Strategy, the big things that get people excited and make a big difference. So we need some of that as well. It's high risk and might not work, but when it works, it pays off big. Apple, if you think about it, they're our benchmark company. Apple is good at both. They're really good at both. They're all the time making the MacBooks and all the computers better, but at the same time they're doing iPods and iPads and moving out into the revolutionary blue ocean areas. So in summary for this section, marketing drives growth. Marketing is important. Let's just put it in since we all agree. Great marketing is reliable, sustainable growth. Most marketing sucks, and that's a huge opportunity for us. And great marketing takes leadership, process, and innovative customer experience. So that's the first part of our talk. By the way, I'm going to have to rely on somebody to signal to me when the time, I realized I don't even have a watch, so so I don't get carried away here. So let's go into the next part of this. We believe that one of the best ways to learn is to tell stories. And we do this all the time, but to tell stories of customers and what happened to them, because we all kind of get engaged in that and we see what they were doing. And when you tell a story, you can handle a lot more complexity and look at things in a much more detailed and complex way than when I give you more slides and just hammer you with more bullet points, right? I mean, it's all about telling the story. So let's do this. Seeker Surfs Well is a new smartphone for the surfing market. So let's learn more about it. Paul Martell is an Australian entrepreneur. That's purely coincidental. And he had three successful startups in Australia, went to Silicon Valley. He's a surfer. When he was there, he got this idea that there was really a need for a smartphone for surfers. And so he set up Seeker, which I think is a cool name, to make a phone for that purpose. And he calls it Seeker Surf and Sun. Now, he went to Q9 Mobile, which is a Shenzhen company in China making phones, and talked to them about manufacturing it. They loved it so much they invested in the company, but he wouldn't give them more than 47% because he wants to run it. And he's a person that's absolutely committed as a good leader, as we talked about. He's committed as a leader to build a great team. So he's very, very careful about how he does that. He interviewed his 5 marketing people very intensively and talked to many, many people, 275 to be exact, to get the 5 to go. They located the company in Geelong, which is a regional city about 50 miles from Melbourne, my hometown. And what's so cool about this is they put it near, by putting it in Geelong, in that building that you see, I shouldn't point to the computer, in the building you see, is that it's near Bells Beach, which is one of the world's finest surf beaches and the site of World Championship surfing. And it's also near the Billabong Surf Shop in Torquay. Down at the bottom here, they actually have a place called the Surf City Mall, which has a whole bunch of surf stores in Torquay. And Billabong, the biggest surf dealer in the world, has a branch there. Why is this so important? Because they want to talk to customers all the time and get their feedback. They want to be close to them. It's part of the understanding of the process. Here's the marketing team. We have Paul, who calls himself the big dude. I figured if he could be the big dude, I could be the big wheel and promoter. He recruited Susan Kim from Samsung in Seoul, and she's really considered the marketing visionary, the product marketing visionary in that space in the world. She jumped at the chance. Korea is not a great place for women to push forward, so she's very excited. John Bergman is marketing strategist. Tam Nu Yan is the marketing production manager. Gemma Beale, here's a brilliant thing. Gemma is a former Australian surfing champion, and she is both an industrial designer and graphic designer. So she fills those roles on the team. But every day, virtually, she gets on her Kawasaki bike and rides down to Bells Beach and to the Billabong surf store and takes prototypes and takes drawings and asks them questions. Even though Paul Martell is a surfer and 4 other members of their team in Geelong are surfers, they want to talk to more surfers and people who sell products to surfers, which is very smart. And Monica Nkosazana came over from South Africa. They hired a guy. He didn't work out. He didn't support the team. He was out for himself. So they got rid of him and brought in Monica. She was selling cell phones to surfers at Jeffreys Beach in South Africa. And she is a Zulu woman who has amazing energy that keeps the whole team operating. They identified, talking about customers and understanding who their customers are, they were pretty clear. They said, look, our primary segment is professional and amateur surfers. There's about 20 million of them worldwide. We think about 10 million of those will be available to us because of the channels, because of the coverage issues of, is there cell phone coverage in different areas, and so on. So they'd say conservatively, if there's 10 million of those and a typical phone in the surf lasts for a couple of years, then you know, there's a good business here. And that was all the marketing research they did. They said, this is enough for us to build a business. And Q9 agreed with that and invested in the business. Their secondary segment is windsurfers, because they found that the value proposition for surfers and windsurfers was essentially the same. And this is important because we all know that very often what happens is we get some great product idea for a specific segment, and somebody says, well, you know, if we only change this, it'd be also good for these other segments, and maybe we could change something else. And pretty soon what started out as that thoroughbred Arabian stallion design ends up as that ugly camel. Nothing against camels, but it's, you know, it happens all the time. We've all been there. And so that enhances their available market. So that's their assessment of customers. Here's what they're trying to do. They plan to launch next month in 3 markets, and their estimates are, I think, quite conservative. Their mission is to solve problems for people using mobile technology. And by solving problems for people, they're talking about focused segments and being the cell phone people who do it for very specific works. Now, if you talk to surfers, which they did, they talked to themselves because they are the customers, but they also talked to a lot of surfers. These were the sorts of things they heard as needs and by extension as problems. Obviously, a problem is you take a cell phone into the surf, you have some severe punishment problems. It's going to have a tough life. But it has to be safe to carry, and it's not going to injure you, or it's not going to be damaged by being used in the surf. It has to be simple to use, and so on. They even talked about some safety things, like they said, look, if I get hit by my board and I'm lying floating in the water, I'd like there to be some dead man activation that would activate a beacon, bring people to me fast. Seems fair enough. There's needs and wants. And this, in case you can't read this, from the back it says, do you need an anthropomorphic car with a monkey chauffeur in the city? No. Do you want it? Definitely. So, I love this, it's so cool. Now, you have to be careful what you want. Paul Martel made a random statement early in the process and said, just make it like a Rolex Submariner. And this sent the engineers off into a total frenzy, because a Submariner is waterproof to 1,000 feet. And look, you don't actually go that deep into surfing. Yeah. So, you know, they came back with an estimate that said this is going to cost you $7,500 per phone. Not so good. So when they revised that and said, look, let's be good to 3 meters, 10 feet, that'll be fine, for sustained waterproofing, we can get lower costs. We're still going to be more expensive than a lot of other smartphones. Now, if you're going to be more expensive, you've got to bring in more value, because otherwise they'll just say, yeah, it's nice, I'd like to take this into the surf with me, but I can just leave my iPhone on the shore in the car, and I don't think I want to spend the extra money. So there has to be additional value. We always, marketing, as we know, is a trade-off, and we're weighing those two things. What are they up against? Well, we tend to think of this in 3 categories. The obvious one is competitors. Who are they competing with? Which means the same form and the same function. What are the substitutes? And here we're talking about a different form but the same function. So, for example, TurboTax and a pencil and calculator and a CPA are all substitutes for each other to do your taxes. And that's pretty important to remember, because very often the substitutes and the alternatives are the things that actually are our biggest effective competitors. That's what we're really up against. Alternatives are when it takes a different form, a different function, but the same results. So the idea of watching TV or going to the movies or going to a ball game with friends to have fun, they're all totally different, but they're all with the same result of having fun with your friends. So we need to look at those 3 things.